And let's get, Data Entries was the only fanzine that I subscribed to. There were several others out there, but I liked Data Entries because I liked Melody Rondeau. I got to know her through correspondence, and I found out she may have been a Star Trek fan, but she was very, I don't know how to describe her. She was a very generous person, and she had high moral standards. She was a Christian, but we corresponded, and she told me a little bit about herself, and she always conducted herself very professionally. And even though Data Entries may not have been a professional level fanzine, Melody herself always conducted herself like a professional. And she was, well, anyways, what happened with my teleplay was that it made print in 2 installments. The first half made print in September 1992, and the second half in January 1993. And she pretty much printed it the way it was, though there were always typos. There were always typos in the publication. She was very, very busy. And I don't think she was making a profit from this fanzine. It was a labor of love for this editor. And I just appreciated the fact that she printed it. But I thought it was very interesting that the first time I got a hint that Brent might have a girlfriend was when the first half of my teleplay made print. I think the name of the letter writer name was Mary Heaston. Brent she claimed she was a college student or something. Brent was at a Star Trek convention in San Antonio, and I remember distinctly this letter writer was curious about this blonde. And every time the letter writers wrote about Brent with this blonde, I noticed they always described him as nervous. Like he looked real nervous, and he was looking over they said one letter writer commented that he kept looking at the blonde woman who was with him, like for some sort of approval or something. That concerned me. When I read that this person seemed to make him nervous, they claimed maybe he was nervous because he was at the Star Trek convention. Brent has been a little bit shy with the public, and so the letter writers would insinuate that it was probably because he was not used to being with his fans. But I knew him, and I knew how comfortable he was with me. My impression was, when I was worried about him, I thought, I remember back then I asked myself, whoever this blonde woman is, she's not good for him, because she's making him nervous. I remember that every time they wrote about him being with this blonde, they would say he kept looking at her when he was giving his speech or his answering questions, the fans' questions at these Star Trek conventions. And I thought, why would Brent allow a good-looking blonde woman to go with him? She was obviously good-looking because they all said she was cute and everything. So to go with him to these conventions, and why would he allow her to go with him when he's with his family? And I thought, I was starting to wonder who she was. And I got a little curious, but I was concerned about him. I figured that maybe Paramount didn't like me because they rejected my teleplay, and I thought that was kind of strange because I knew I wrote a good one. And I was also getting the Star Trek magazine, and they always gave advice to spec script writers. That's what you were called if you were an unknown teleplay writer trying to write for Star Trek. And they always gave advice, and they said that they weren't accepting any sequels to a story. Which story was it? I can't remember. That had to do with lore. So I wrote something with lore in it because I remember reading in the fanzines that Brent wanted a sequel written to a lore episode because he thought it would be fun to act it. So I wrote him a sequel. See, I was reading the fanzines to learn more about him and what I could do to make him happy. And that's when I first found out about this blonde. That, I believe, was September of 93, but I didn't dwell on it. I wasn't jealous of her or anything. I was worried about Brent. Because I noticed immediately I guess looking at him through the eyes of love, that whoever this woman was, she was making him nervous. So my first gut feeling about this blonde was, I said, I don't know who she is, but I don't like her. And it had nothing to do with the fact that she was blonde. Though I noticed everybody described her as the cute blonde, it was the fact that she made him nervous. I said, I don't want him to be nervous. And I never forgot that 3 weeks of silence. I somehow thought there's some sort of a connection between the suffering. And then I remembered in November of 92, this was about 2 months after he gave me 3 weeks of silence, he called me up about, I'd say about a week and a half after my birthday. I remember very distinctly that I finally resigned myself to the fact that it was over between Brent and myself, because he was giving me the silent treatment. So I wrote him a letter, and I said, Brent, it appears you don't want to contact me anymore. I don't know why. I said, but I want you to know that I'm going to pray for you every day for a half an hour from my window. I've made a covenant with God, and that's how I will communicate. He said, I'm not going to write you a whole bunch anymore, because for some odd reason you seem to want to end our communication. I don't know why. He said, but I want you to know I'm going to pray. I said, I'll keep writing, but I may not write as much. He said, but I will pray for you every day. I finally had peace. I went to God in prayer and asked him what I should do. And the only way that I could go to bed at night, I cried my eyes out. I was so upset. When I couldn't go, I was crying all day. I was depressed because he was everything to me. I loved him so much, I ruined my gums to write that teleplay. So I said, I finally found peace with God. I thought, well, I know how I can love him now. I said, I can love him by praying for him every day. So I made a covenant with God and with Brent, and I said, I know you're not going to contact me anymore, but I won't forget you. I'm going to love you by praying for you half an hour every day for the rest of my life. The next day, he called. He didn't talk to me. He rarely talked to me. Usually in 90 or 91, he only talked to me maybe 5 times a year, and it was always brief, and he never stayed on the phone long. But after that, it called.